Hello and welcome back to an episode of the KC Leaders Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, David Maples, and today I'm really excited to be welcoming Dan Smith. He's the founder and creator of Porterhouse KC. And Dan, I wanted to welcome you to this show.
Yeah, David, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it and excited to get into it.
Yeah, totally, man. So, okay, a couple things just as a clearinghouse matter.
Yeah.
So, Porterhouse KC, what would you say in your own words is what's the mission of it and what does it do?
Sure. So, we are an organization created to help support entrepreneurs in the urban core. Primarily, we do three main programs. So, we have a small business development program, we have a mentoring program, and then soon to be opening, we will have an incubator focused on retail-based entrepreneurs.
Okay. And that incubator, that's going to be downtown, right?
On 31st Street.
It's on 31st Street,
Yeah.
right? So, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And is that the Porterhouse? That's the 811 project?
Yeah, that's the 811 incubator, retail incubator. So our focus, rewind probably like 3 to 4 years. We surveyed a lot of the folks that have been through our programs to see what additional things we can do to really help enhance their entrepreneurial journey. And a part of it was they really have a lot of the entrepreneurs that we serve that are retail based, they're used to doing pop-ups like around the cities. So it doesn't really give a lot of consistency. It doesn't allow those entrepreneurs to see if what they have really would be a sustainable business venture, right? And so what we wanted to do is create a space that those entrepreneurs can come to, call home, at least for, we go up to 18 months, but call home. But then also all of what we do is about education. So every piece of all of our programming, we have some type of educational element. And so they'll be going through like an 8-week small business class, and then there's also we're working with a group out of St. Louis that their focus is on getting product-based business owners to be marketed for big box retailers. So to be into the Targets and the Walmarts and things of that nature. So not only are we trying to get these folks to eventually be ready to operate their own brick and mortar, but we're also trying to create this opportunity for them to get out and go beyond just that brick and mortar model and try to get their products into the big box retailer. Excuse me. Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff, a lot of good work.
No, totally get it. I had a mentor once tell me that until you had a product, you really don't have a business. Because products are scalable.
Yeah,
you can do different things with them. Sure. And some of my day job stuff, we've actually helped people, get their stuff into like a Walmart, et cetera.
Awesome.
But in marketing stuff, but kind of from that standpoint, what drew you to doing this? Like, what's the impetus behind your mission?
Yeah. So I grew up in the city, right off 33rd and Jackson. Always have had this thing about entrepreneurship since as long as I can remember. I was that kid that had selling candy out of my backpack and had folks at my locker buying different things, chips and. Back when I was coming up, it was these blue suckers. Not to be really specific, but to be really specific, there were these blue bomb pot or suckers that just came out. Everybody wanted them. You go to like a Sam's Club style store and buy a bunch of them and sell them for $1, and you're making 75% profit on each of those. So. It was, but it started there, went from there, did party promotions when I was like a junior and senior in high school. So we used to throw parties to make money. And then not long after I graduated high school and into my first year in college, met Sharon and my co-founder. And back then we started a maintenance company. Out of all things that we could have done, we started a maintenance company. And it was to... Section 8 apartments, helping them. They're called make-readies, where we had to get those apartments ready and made for the next tenant. But it just, like I said, from there, just kind of continued. We had all these other smaller little endeavors, and what we realized is that there needed to be additional support structures around for entrepreneurs like us. So if we had what the Porterhouse KC is now, then we may have had, one of the largest maintenance companies in the world. You never know, right? But that was a part of the reason why we started this, because we wanted to figure out how can we pour back into the community that raised us through an entrepreneurship lens.
It's kind of interesting. We've talked about this on previous episodes of the show, that the two biggest obstacles that prevent anybody from achieving some manner of success in their lives, et cetera, economic freedom, those kind of things, are education and access to capital. And those two items predominantly affect minorities. Yeah. Predominantly. Yeah. And, I'm the benefit of certain privileges because of how I've raised and born, et cetera. And I think that's one of the big things. I think actually helping people, that first step is it's incredibly important. And those things, we're doing some work with a friend of the show, Stacey Evans. We're working on the Quindaro Township project with her right now. We're doing some pro bono work with them. And I don't know if this will go in the show or not. It doesn't really matter. Sure, but the thing we were talking about is where that's located is a very kind of depressed, economically disadvantaged community. But if we could literally get some stuff in there, it could help everyone in that community.
Yeah. So we've taken this approach, and this is the last maybe a couple of years, because we wanted to really we're really honestly nerds, right? And we want to really learn. We geek out on data and learn as much as we can. And we came across the social determinants of health.
Got it.
And so the social determinants of health basically are saying that from a certain zip code, in certain zip codes of the city, the lifespan of an individual is shorter because of the lack of educational resource, because of the lack of healthy food, because of the lack of economic stability, and then also healthcare and childcare. So, with those social determinants of health, it determines how well a community does.
Yeah.
And so a part of what we do and the way we do it is we try to be a part of a little piece of all of those pieces of the social determinants of health, because what we recognize is that not one thing is going to make that effective change that's needed. It's going to be all of these things. So a lot of times, often you'll hear these discussions, and it's housing, or it's healthcare, or it's food deserts, or it's entrepreneurship, lack of resources, things like that. And they're fighting each other, right? For the resource, for the opportunity, for whatever that is. And we've, come to realize that we're all in this together. So we have to figure out ways to not only play in the sandbox together, but also support each other. So we actually have a partnership with UMKC. We have this Our Healthy Jackson County. It's a Jackson County initiative. We do health screenings and all this good stuff around the city, so that we spearhead the business sector in that, right? We do the high school. So when we talk about education, we go back, Raytown School District, Kansas City Public Schools. We have partnerships with multiple school districts. So we bring our entrepreneurs to those schools. So it's one of those things where if you see it, you could believe that you can be it. So we bring in our entrepreneurs to come have dialogue and conversation with students. And then we do all kind of other programming. But a lot of the work that we do is based in this whole ecosystem of the social determinants of health. And so the economic development piece is literally, we talk about community and the lack of resource in community. A part of that is lack of understanding, but also it is, we don't have a lot of corner shops in our neighborhoods anymore, right? We don't have a lot of small, retail businesses that used to be in these spaces, in these communities, that would allow the teenagers that lived up the street to have a part-time job after school, right? Now these teenagers have to figure out ways to go to go distance to find economic stability or some type of funding, right? And parents too, right? Parents as well. Like lack of transportation puts them in a bad place. So all these different things that we're being a part of, it's all a driver of these social determinants and trying to figure out better ways to improve our community.
Something you said there I think is really interesting that I'd like to dig a little deeper into was, it's not this, but it's yes, and it's the everything from housing, affordable transportation. I read a study, I think 2 weeks ago, and it said that if you're below a certain income threshold in the United States, an automobile can literally be 15 to 20% of your annual income, carrying insurance, paying for the car, fuel, and everything else. And I think a lot of people and listeners on the show, maybe you don't experience this, but for somebody, if that's literally 10 to 20% of your income, right, that is literally a barrier before you do anything else. Yeah. Everything from housing, education, good communities, incarceration, it's a factorial problem, right? Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that, so my question for you, Dan, is this because people like the soundbite? Is because it's easy to digest when I say, oh, it's this one thing. If you fix this one thing in the community, or is it just lack of understanding?
I think so this is going to be interesting. I love the question. A lot of what we see is performative. The reason why it's performative is because you don't get attention if you say it's all of it. If I come into a space and I say, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right, let's come to a circle, come to a central understanding, it pulls the attention away from housing specifically. It pulls the attention away from healthcare specifically. It pulls the attention away from economic development specifically, right? And so if I'm performative in this area, if my voice can be louder than these other voices in this room, then we get more attention. We could potentially get more support, right? And it's about the performative. And that's what's tough about. I mean, you could dive into politics and all these other things. And you hear these weird, like folks will come out with weird sound bites or weird positions and all this other stuff. And if you talk to them when the camera's off, or if you talk to them when there's no microphone in their face, they know. Yeah. This is like we had like, yes, I know this, but I had to say that because it draws attention. I had to say that because then it brings attention to whatever the matter is. And so we understand that too. And so like even on social media, so like we're really heavily engaged on social media. We like to push out, and it's not about us. It's about the people, the folks that we're able to support. But what we understand is if there's not a light shown is whatever the word. I don't know what the right word is. But if there's not a light directed towards the entrepreneurs that we support, then they get overlooked because they don't understand how to be a loud voice in the room, because they're just trying to figure out, how do I fix this thing? How do I do this thing? So we have to be performative for them. And so that's why you see, we just had a Startland News article that came out yesterday, which we appreciate their partnership. We have, articles in the Business Journal. We have stuff on the news, all this stuff. But all these things that we do it's not about us. It's literally about creating this performative space so the folks that we support will get attention. So, yeah, so it's an interesting conversation. We need to have it all centralized. We need to have a common ground. We need to have a central space of understanding. But it's tough to get to that position without a level of major level of influence.
I guess it's a lot of it's, we're all chasing dollars to some extent.
Yeah.
And there's a limited amount of them to go around. Mm-hmm. And if I don't get them for my particular program, then, ultimately that is my program and that could suffer. Yeah. I get it. It's unfortunate that that's the way it works. But, it's funny what you mentioned, like what people tell you when the cameras stop rolling, right? Because they totally level with you. Yeah. But it's that soundbite we have to put online. And social media, I think, has amplified that a little bit.
100%.
It's changed things a lot. So you, going back to, selling candy out of your locker in
Yeah.
high school, right?
Yeah.
So what made you say, okay, of these levers I could trip, is it really that you said entrepreneurship is the one I want to go after?
You know what's funny is literally none of this was supposed to happen. None of this was a plan. About 10 years ago, I see Google up there. About 10 years ago, Google Fiber announced that they were coming to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And there was this huge conversation through, the chamber, civic councils, things like that, about making Kansas City the most entrepreneurial city in the country. And what I recognized was that the conversation was only had in a certain area of our city, and I wanted to figure out why not. Like, why is that conversation just happening to the west, on the west side of Truce, and not necessarily on the east side of Truce? And literally, just because I just wondered why, I went down this rabbit hole, figure out why. And what we came up with was, and I went to my co-founder Sharon at the time, and I said, "Man, we gotta, I wonder what this is." And so, after digging, after talking to a ton of people and doing some research, we found obviously the things that you said, right? There was a lack of education, there was a lack of financial opportunity, and there was a lack of access to people, right, and network. And so we just said, hey, like, we have a lot of friends that are, accountants, that are lawyers, that are marketers. Let's see if they would just be willing to spend some time with some folks that are interested in being entrepreneurs for free, right? Like, we don't have any money. This is just let's just see if this will work. This will happen. Yeah. And so our partners at Chess Inc., we had a conversation with those guys, and they were like, yeah, heck yeah, come have it in our space. And they're literally, their office is on right off of 31st and Gillum Plaza. So there's a bus line right there. So it's really accessible. So we thought about all these things. We wanted to make it accessible. We wanted to make sure that there was value there. We wanted to create a network impact. So folks that were there would be able to network with each other, learn more about each other. And then we wanted to fill a gap. So we knew that there was also a barrier of childcare and there was a barrier of food, right? And so what we end up doing is I end up paying, met a caterer at the time that was willing to do some food options for us. And literally every month I paid out of my pocket to have food there. We allowed kids to come. There was little other office spaces that they can run around and tear up stuff. And sometimes those offices were closed. So we just had kids run around in the back and, but it was just a part of the ecosystem. This is a part of this community what we were trying we knew that we had to build to be able to have an impact. And so we did those for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. The Kauffman Foundation heard about what we were doing. So Erin Jenkins, she's actually no longer with the Kauffman Foundation, but when she was with the Kauffman Foundation, she was an advocate, ally for us in that space. And we didn't even know that we needed that, right? Because we didn't know anything about nonprofit. We didn't know what an ESO was, so Entrepreneur Support Organization. We didn't know what that was. We didn't know any of this stuff. We just knew that we had friends that could do some workshop stuff and could relay some good information to some entrepreneurs that needed. That's all or not even entrepreneurs at the time. Some of them were just folks that was interested in starting a business, right? Erin challenged us. Erin said, hey, you've been doing this for about a year and a half. There's more to this than just this. Not that this is not cool, but you can really have some impact in our community if you dive a little deeper. So that was the challenge. And the challenge came with, at the time, Kauffman used to do these little sponsorship things. And she sponsored $5,000. She gave us $5,000, which obviously we were paying for everything out of our pocket. We had no idea. So $5,000 was everything to us, right? And it was a seed that allowed us to really dive into what this thing was. So we got to pay for food for another year with that $5,000. We were able to do a couple of social media ads, like brand what we were doing, and yeah, it just kind of blossomed from there. And so we just kept growing and kept listening to the community, listening to what the needs are, and trying to figure out ways to fill those needs.
Something you said a minute ago, I don't think
I'm sorry I'm long-winded too, so
No,
I apologize.
I mean, it's a good discussion, but something you said a minute ago made me think about something, because I always talk about education and access to capital. But capital is not just financial, it's human capital.
It is.
It's I had a good friend of mine who said he mentioned that the neighborhood he grew up in, he said there was one doctor and one lawyer in the neighborhood, and out of 300 homes, right? And he said, that was the only, so everybody, and he said in his neighborhood growing up, he said it was like, the only access to get out of the city, and it wasn't here, it's another city.
Sure.
But, he said the only thing we were supposed to, it's like we were supposed to grow up and play sports or something else like that. He said we didn't have a lot of, and his community didn't have a lot of role models, and people who looked like him could show that you've been successful based on wherever it worked from. And I was thinking about that access to human capital. So what you said a minute ago is like, we didn't even know we needed this. You get an advocate or something like that. And a lot of things I think a lot of us take for granted is, having access to those mentors, having people who are willing to come in and give of their time is incredible. It's as important, if not more so, than just the financial capital.
Agreed.
I just hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, so Porterhouse KC, when is this? When's the incubator? When are you started to open it? So, what's the plan? What's keeping it from opening right now?
Beautiful question, right? That's the question always that we get, and we're like, we wanted to be open a year ago. But it looks, we're hopeful that within the next month or month and a half, we should be able to be open. We just keep, it's a 100-year-old building that we have, and, there's things that reveal themselves later than,
It's like, I didn't know this was in this world.
Right. We wish they would have revealed themselves earlier when the primary construction of the first phase was happening. But but they keep revealing themselves. And so this last couple of weeks, we had to do some brickwork on the inside of the space after we've already gotten sheetrock up and displays up and all the stuff. And so, I'm hopeful for, the end of the month, possibly the beginning of June. But just going to knock on wood, and we're just staying forward with the process.
Well, please keep the show apprised as you move forward.
Absolutely.
On that, because we'll definitely promote it on all of our channels, etc.
Appreciate that.
And if there's somebody we can help put you all in touch with, etc., as far as that goes, I had a friend on the show, and they said that it's about being intentional. So I'll open up my I can just. I will sit here and we'll open up our phones, and I can help put you in touch with people or whatever it is. Like if there's somebody, I don't know what it is. Sure. But I want to turn a little bit to the kind of Kansas City aspect now. Yeah. So you were raised here. You grew up here, born and raised here. Yeah. Okay. Now, what do you kind of love about Kansas City, and what makes it stand out from other places you've been or seen?
Honestly, I might give you an answer that it sounds cliche, or it sounds, it's not as might not be as appealing, or whatever the case may be. But, I was born here. The YMCA down the street was my home YMCA. The park right around the corner from that YMCA on Linwood was the park that I got to walk to and ride my bike to, and eventually drive my car to play basketball. The elementary school that I went to was 3 blocks away from my house, so I walked to school every day. Elementary, and then my middle school was 5 blocks away from my house, so I walked to my middle school. Then the high school, my freshman year, was about 5 or 6 blocks away, so I got to walk to my high school. It's just like, it's my community, right? I don't know if there's a way to really describe the love that I have for for my community, but I've always had this love, right? My mom worked as a social worker for years. She's retired now. My grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, but worked at the post office. And my grandmother was a nurse in a school. It just is, right? There's not a full definition. It just is. And I really can't explain it. I think others probably might have the same affinity or affection for where they're from as well. But it just is.
I personally don't have the same affinity or affection for where I'm from, but I have. We were embraced kind of in this community very, very quickly, and
That's awesome.
I think that not that this is not my story, but
Sure.
I feel like Kansas City is one of those cities that's really. And I've kind of read up on the history, everything from its founding and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting place, but I feel like it's really. Just in the tech corridor thing, like it was listed, it made the top list of technology. These kind of things. Like if we not to use the cliche, but if we play our cards right, if we do things correctly and are intentional about the things we do over the next decade, this could literally stand head and shoulders with any other city in America. And I think that's really freaking. I mean, look, aside from the Chiefs being a great team, right? And football's okay, but and by the way, nothing against the Chiefs. Please don't send me hate mail or anything else like that. The Chiefs are great, right?
We've been through enough loss to be okay with these wins. I'm great for the wins.
Royals, hey, Royals out there. If y'all could take a page out of their book,
right? They're doing better.
They're doing better. They're doing better. But it's like okay. Again, no hate mail, or give us downvote us, make us the most downvoted podcast in Kansas City. That would be great. We'll lean into that, right? But that being said, it's really cool to see someone who really loves their community, because everything you mentioned there, down the street, the blocks, the community, a lot of these things are important, and we need people who are invested in this community to make it what we want it to be. Yeah. How do you personally stay informed and connected with the Kansas City community? What do you do? How do you get engaged here?
What do we not do? I think that's more the question. Like where we are boots on the ground in the community. I just don't know it any other way, right? So we've been able to just stay connected. My mom still lives at the same house that I grew up in, so I go back home. That's easy. We have friends that work in space. We're lucky to have friends that work in space, like school districts. My wife is a principal at the University Academy, which is a charter school. My little brother is a vice principal at Brookside Charter. We're just ingrained in the community. It would be hard for us not to. Right, we would have to be intentionally not present to not show up, in these spaces.
Let me do something so that my listeners can understand kind of
absolutely
how y'all's mission is kind of changing people's lives, et cetera, or changing their kind of their outcomes or where they're going. Would you be willing to share a personal story or an anecdote of somebody y'all have worked with, either through your efforts, et cetera? Without, you don't have to say the name of what they are, their organization, but just share kind of what you've seen that journey be for them and how you've helped that outcome.
Yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot.
Not that you have to pick your favorite.
There's no, there's, I can speak to just recently, we had an entrepreneur come up to us and, that graduated our program and basically just said, me and my wife said that what we're doing, we need to stop doing this, and I have to go find a real job if something doesn't work. And after completing our program, there was something that worked. And now there's an excitement for the future of the business and its impact on community. That happens a lot believe it or not, with what we do. And I'll be honest with you. I don't do well with praise.
Okay.
I don't do well with it's a me thing, right? Like I don't do well with celebrating success or celebrating wins. I'll say, and so others around me understand that, and so I kind of make it difficult for others sometimes to celebrate wins and to kind of lean into what we've done for other folks. And so I recognize that, and it's tough. It's just a way that I've been for as long as I can remember. But when I do hear those stories, which, like I said, we do hear them often, it really hits home. Obviously, that's the validation that we need. We're not like needing to go through an incubator or through an accelerator to validate us for the things that we're doing. Our validation comes from the folks that we support and we serve.
It's a very humble way to be, and it's very attractive. And no, like we'll be glad to cheer you on from the sidelines. But I think it's important in the message that the community knows about the work being done. There's a lot of kind of unsung heroes in the community, and
there's a ton of people. Yeah,
I'd like to turn the light on them a bit because I feel like there's only so much oxygen in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that the person who's the loudest,
yep,
like all of a sudden is seeing these doing the things, and there's a lot of worthy causes, and there's a lot of people doing the work, and I think it's incumbent upon us to kind of recognize those people and say thank you.
So to that point, I had a moment of clarity some years ago, and we recognized that the loudest people in the room were right or wrong, like if they were really doing what they say they're doing or not, the loudest people in the room got the most attention.
Sure.
And I'd always worked in a way that I didn't feel like boasting and bragging and doing that was the way to be, right? So I would always be like in the back of a room and just like absorbing information and listening. But I recognized that the loudest people in the room were the ones that were getting this attention. And so we would always get asked to do different things like earlier on. And I was like, no, that's not us. We're not, that's not. And so then the moment of clarity came, like I was talking to my co-founder and the moment of clarity came and understanding came through this conversation. Because what we had to realize was, am I doing this work for me? Am I doing this work to satisfy, and I'm going to use this word, but, to satisfy my own ego? But because I'm the way I am, I still can't, I have to sit in the back of the room, right? Or is this work about really, truly trying to impact lives and community? And once I was able to lean into that understanding, now I don't have a problem getting on a stage. I don't have a problem having a conversation and getting, cameras and any of that stuff. Whereas before, I didn't want any of it, right? But again, it's still not because I want to be here. It's not still because I want a camera on me. It's because I found a way to fight through the fear of all of these things for the greater good of what we're trying to accomplish. So hopefully someone that's listening, that taps in, hopefully that's a message that I can help relay to them, is that, get outside of yourself. What are you doing this for? Are you doing it for legacy? If you're doing it for your family, if you're doing it for community, if you're doing it for whatever, understand what that why is, and that'll help you drive and push forward beyond any fears or apprehension that you may have.
So to direct the spotlight off you for a second.
Sure.
Because as you say, you're not, and by the way, thanks for the work you're doing. I think it's really important. And I know you don't like praise, so I'm just doing this.
Yeah.
Doing it to make you uncomfortable.
Thanks.
But are there any local leaders or influencers in Kansas City that kind of inspire you? And if so, who are they and why? Just some shout outs.
Man, there's so many. I thrive off of inspiration of others because we see other folks like really doing some important work. And I guess I'd be remiss first if I didn't acknowledge the people that are closest to me.
Sure.
And so like, Miranda's our director of programs. She calls herself the herder of the cats. But Miranda's like, if we weren't able to get Miranda, I had to lure her away from another employer. If we weren't able to do that, I don't know if we would be where we are today, without her work and her tenacity and her ability to just like tell us no and tell us yes, right? Like you need people that are going to be authentically in your corner.
Yeah.
And I think that Miranda really helps us out. And Sharon, obviously, as a co-founder, we both, in this space, but our families, my wife, Sharon's wife, our kids, very supportive. But also very important in our path. But as it relates to also externally, like community folks, the guys at ChessLink, Ron and Coley, they're doing some phenomenal work in the housing in the housing area. You got Michael Cremona over at Casey SourceLink, that's helping drive the connectivity in the ecosystem. You got Davin over at Hall Family Foundation. It's really trying to stay tried and true to community. These people that get into these spaces that can really enact change. It's really cool to see them in those spaces and being able to do those things. Because when you're young, you always assume that if you get promoted or if you get put into a place of power of some sort, you wonder, will I still do the things that I know are necessary, or will I conform to what this environment wants me to be? And I'll say that those guys have not conformed. They are pressing, they are being advocates, they're still in the community. And it's really, 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 really refreshing to see. But even Myra, the CEO of Hall Family, and Maria Myers, who's kind of been like, I don't have I wouldn't say like I'm deeming her a mentor. She probably, if you ask her, she might be like, who is that guy? But but I see her as a mentor, and she's over at UMKC as well. You got Brian at KU. He's doing some amazing things with the program at KU and creating intersection between community and university. You got Ben, you got the folks at UMKC that's kind of doing the same thing, trying to bridge the gap between university and community. You got Brandon with Gift. You got, who else? Chef Shanita with the Prospect KC. You have, I don't know what that's saying. She's trying to help me out. DP with the KC Current.
By the way, those of you listening to the show, Miranda, who you mentioned before,
Miranda's trying to help
is
me.
off camera trying to signal Dan here.
Yes. DP with the KC Current. Again, one of those people that are change makers in industry. So KC Current, I know you may know, but the listeners might not know that KC Current Stadium just recently opened this year.
Yeah.
Is the only stadium in the world that's dedicated to a women's athletic team, like was built for a women's athletic team. This is the first one in the world. And we have a friend that actually is the director of community engagement for the KC Current. And she's phenomenal. She's a transplant. She's from Detroit, but we don't hold that against her. It's okay.
Totally fine.
But all these folks, man, I mean, you got Karen Finaroli, who's doing some amazing things. You have Crystal Everett, with KCPS. You have Kansas City Public Schools. She's doing a lot of stuff with real world learning and things like market value assets. So we want to make sure that we say the right things, not just real world learning. It's market value assets. That's what high schools are going towards. So they have, when seniors graduate high school, they can say, I have a market value asset that I can take with me. If I decide to go to college, it's with me, or if I decide to go into trade or something else, I have a market value asset that I can take with me. Crystal's one of the folks that's really pushing that forward. But there's so many, and I hate, I hate to forget. I forget names, and they blame it on my head, but not my heart. But it's so many folks that's in community that's doing some tremendous things that inspire me. And like, social media. I go through this thing with social media, and I don't hate social media. So there's a love. What's the other word? Relax. So I love, but then there's some times that I relax on social media,
Fair
right?
enough. That's a different way of putting it.
But in the relax period, I go through this time of, I need inspiration. So if I go through this scrub, so the people that I follow on social media are normally people that inspire me. And so, I go through an inspiration. Like I don't see a lot of drama on my social media feeds. I don't have, the relationship that some others have with social media. I'm okay with it because I'm inspired by a lot of the people that I follow, most of the people that I follow. So yeah.
We're gonna, with every person you mentioned there's a lot. To my producers, thank you. We're gonna actually go through and we'll link to all of them in the show notes.
Sorry, producers. I apologize.
Y'all are gonna earn your check today. That's the way this works.
Absolutely.
So kind of, there's a lot going on there, but so how do you see, looking into the kind of the future, if you could project yourself, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, how do you see the future of Kansas City, and what role do you hope to be playing?
So you have some really great questions, right? And I'm very introspective on a lot of these answers. So forgive me for that. But 5 to 10 years from now is like a world. It's going to be a world of difference. To think that I know or have an idea of what 5 to 10 years will look like for me is just like, it's not even possible. And I tell this to my students. So I teach a class at KU, it's an entrepreneurship class. And I asked the students earlier in the semester, I said, why are you in school? There was a moment of silence. And they were like, to get a job, right? Or the most, these other really basic things. And I said, no. I said, you're in school so you can figure out a way to be transformational. You have to be able to transform to the environments, and with the tools that you take from school, you should be able to do that, right? Because we don't know what 5 years from now is going to look like. Yeah. But because you're tooled to transform, you'll put yourself in a position to still continue to be marketable, right? Or value, right? And so 5 to 10 years from now for Kansas City, I don't know. What I hope is that the communities that we support and we serve are standing with their chest out, head held high, and on the road to creating ecosystems that are self-sustaining, that have limited need, and are thriving.
So I'm going to ask you this, and I kind of want you to weigh on this on a couple things.
Sure.
As an educator, you're a professor.
Sure. Very loosely.
Well, whatever.
Very very loosely.
You're educating people at the collegiate level.
Sure.
I don't know what you call that, professor.
Sure.
Anyway, but what steps would you suggest to someone who really wants to make a difference in Kansas City? What do you think they should equip themselves with, or what things should they be doing?
Yeah. So I use this a lot too. Ignorance is bliss. What I mean by that is, if you take action and you just do, it limits this side of your brain that's all about the reasoning, right? I always say ignorance is bliss. Do and then ask for forgiveness later. So recommendations or suggestions on how to do those things. Literally, you have an idea, source it. We have too many resources that we have so many more resources than we had when we were growing up, that literally, if you want to be whatever it is that you want to be, you are, I'd say, less than 24 hours away from getting to where the access to whatever that next need is or that next step is. So be it YouTube University, be it the city, like connecting to the city, like Twitter. Everybody's on X now. Everybody's on X now.
I still can't call it that.
There's access to so many things now that there's no excuse. Now there's not pressure. I'm not saying that this is a thing where, like, if you're not doing this, then you suck at life. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if you want to do something, just know the tools and resources that you need to do those things are there. You just got to go look for them.
Are there any local events or organizations or places even that you think people really need to know about?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm always looking for like the hidden gems, like something you're like, hey, nobody knows about this. You need to find out about this.
We have a lot of things, a lot of places that we feel like people should know about. And I don't know if they do or don't, but I'll like Casey SourceLink, again, Michael's over there, but they have a thing called the Resource Rail. They literally put years of time, blood, sweat, and tears to putting together this resource rail. And it's literally, they have a digital version, but the printed version is literally a fold. You have to fold it out like 6 ways. And it looks like a map, almost a map to a city. But there's like anything that an entrepreneur, and this is obviously for entrepreneurship, anything that an entrepreneur would need, be it Main Street entrepreneurship, be it tech, be it the C Corps, be it 501c3s, whatever the case may be, they have a resource rail that you literally can follow that rail, and it shows thousands. I might be over exaggerating a little bit, but it shows thousands of resources.
Let's go with thousands.
Right, we'll keep the thousands. It shows thousands of resources that are in our city and extended that can help you get from that point to the next point, to the next point, to the next point. So I say first stop for me is Casey SourceLink. Second stop is, if you don't have your business registered, if you don't have the things that you need to legally classify your business, Casey BizCare with the city has been putting a lot of time in creating a better user experience. So they consulted a company out of somewhere else, not in Kansas City, to do this new revamped website. Just came out, I think, in the last couple of years. But it literally takes you through any step that you need to go through, even state. So like if you need to like register with the state, things like that, they have links that'll take you step by step to all these places. So literally, KC BizCare's website, KC SourceLink, literally go in, ask for Michael Cremona or team. They'll be able to help you. And then, we're a hidden gem too. You know what else is a hidden gem? What Kitty's Cafe. Has nothing to do with this topic, but Kitty's Cafe has the best tenderloin and breakfast sandwich in the city, and it's literally right across the street from our 811 space. So I can't wait till we get that open, because then the daily breakfast is going to be had at Kitty's Cafe. I don't know if you've ever been there yet.
I have not.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'll check that out. Well, what we've been actually,
Fire.
it's funny. One of the people I work with actually suggested that we're trying to make we're making an interactive resource map on the KC Leaders podcast site.
Okay.
Because, well, this brings me to the next question.
Sure.
It's kind of an important question, but
Okay.
best barbecue in Kansas City.
Oh, don't do that.
What
to
is it
me.
and why?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
man.
It's a requirement. You cannot leave the room until you answer this question.
So, I got a story for everything. We had just recently we had a fellow in town with us from Brazil for a month. His name is Dutraval. He's from Uberlândia, Brazil. And he is an entrepreneur. He's a really smart guy. He's in his PhD right now. And so he heard, he had to figure out what the best barbecue was. So we took him to, I'm not going to name places, but we took him to different barbecue spots. And we allowed him to determine, because I've been living here all my life. Like,
Sure.
It's different for me. So I let him determine what the best barbecue was for our city after his tour. He said, dramatic pause, Gates Barbecue was the best barbecue that he had in Kansas City. I'm just throwing that out there. It's not me. I've been living here too long. Like, there's meats. Like, I like meats from certain places. I like
Just
sauce from different places.
Name a couple of them.
I mean, Gates is great. People have their opinion about Jack Stack. I think Jack Stack is consistent. It's good. You're gonna get your consistency out of that. Miranda really likes this place on the KCK side called, what's it called? Slaps. She likes Slaps. And, they have good meats. They have great meats. Miranda loves their sauce and meats and everything else, So,
I feel like we should ask, because I had people say, like, the mac and cheese from here is amazing or something like that. Like, if you have a side or go-to, what is your go-to?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, that's a problem, too. Because Jack Stack's cheesy corn is, like, the best to me. And a lot of people don't like. I mean, it's up to them. But fries, I would say, oh man, I don't know who has the best fries either. Goodness gracious, I just dug myself in a hole. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. So, for those of you on the show who are upset now, listening, no, I'm just kidding,
I am sorry.
No, it's totally.
This is
totally
the views and opinions that you heard on this show is not mine. They're of Miranda Schultz. So look her up if you have issues, or Sharon Thompson, one of the two. It's not me.
So Dan is not responsible for any of this.
No, none of this. Even though it's coming out of my mouth.
I wanted to do something kind of new on the show, and I'm
Sure.
stealing this from another place I heard. What would you recommend, recommended reading, like a couple of books you'd say, hey, I think this is important?
So a book that we use, there's a book that I use for my class, and it's called Blue Ocean Strategy, and it's a really good book. The focus of it is it's a two-sided representation of the creativity of business. One is the blue ocean, and the other is red ocean. So what the blue ocean signifies, it signifies not competing with others in this space, but creating something that's all new, that you don't have to fight against other people or competitors. Whereas the red ocean is that, right? The red ocean is just trying to get your 2% of the market share and fight to maintain that 2% of the market share rather than going over. And then some of the examples that they include, Cirque du Soleil is one that's included in that book that is considered a blue ocean. Because you think about Ringling Brothers and you think about the way that the circus format goes, and then imagine Cirque du Soleil is a totally different experience. So that was a created blue ocean. Netflix at one point was a blue ocean. So Blue Ocean Strategy is one. Rick Rubin's creative, what is it called? Creative Act. Yeah. So Rick Rubin, he's a record producer, really creative guy from from New York. He was a founder of Def Jam Records with all those guys back in the day. But Creative Acts is like one of the best books I've read in a while. And then another book I read, and Miranda's helping me with all this because I'm forgetful, but I read all these, is The Alchemist, right? The message is, the universe conspires for those who are on the road to their personal legend. And so that's what the book, The Alchemist, really runs home. And they say it a lot in the book. And the message is phenomenal. The message is, you're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to hit stumbling points. You're going to hit all these barriers. But the universe is going to conspire in your favor as long as you continue to go through those obstacles. And so that's something that resonated like real tough with me, because you hit so many barriers, so many blocks, but the universe has definitely conspired in our favor, because the things that we've been able to do is just unimaginable. And we're still rocking. So, yeah.
Well, Dan Smith, I want to thank you so much, founder of Porterhouse KC, along with a co-founder, along with
Sharon Thompson. Yep.
Sharon Thompson. Yep. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This was enlightening, and this is going to go down as one of my favorite interviews.
Oh, I appreciate that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And for Miranda in the background.
Oh, and Miranda here. You can't forget that she's on the show.
So, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the KC Leaders Podcast. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen. For more information about this podcast, you can visit kcleaderspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our other great podcasts like The Buck Stops Here, streaming now on all major platforms and at thebuckstopsherepodcast.com.